Hey everyone, Allison here, and on the blog this month we are going to start talking about go-to designs. So if you follow ScrapHappy.org on Instagram, you may have already seen Alice's reel about some of her go-to designs. And this all came about because we had Sarah Scraps teach the ScrapHappy memberships during our scrap school. That's a lot of the word scrap, but you know, we're scrapbookers, so we say it a lot. Anyways, Sarah Scraps gave 3 different scrap school lessons on go-to designs. It was the same design. She just flipped it up and mixed it up, and your layouts look completely different. And it got us thinking, what are some of our go-to designs? So I have pulled out some layouts, and I have boxes of layouts waiting to be put into albums. Hopefully I am not alone in that. But anyways, that made it fairly easy for me to just grab a pile and go through them and see if I could see any recurring themes. So a go-to design is something that, as the name suggests, you go to when you are creating a layout. So if you're not working from a sketch, or you don't have a particular class that you're following, or cut file or technique or whatever it is that you're trying to incorporate, and if you're just going freehand, a lot of us kind of revert back to similar ways of arranging our papers and our photos. They're just things that we like to do. So I have gone through some of my layouts, and I have identified 3 different go-to designs. So I'm going to go through them quickly, I hope. So this is my first sort of go-to design, and I'm going to roughly call this an L shape. And it can be altered, it can be flipped. So most usually I have it orientated this way, so I'll have like long vertical elements coming down the left hand side and sort of horizontal pieces along the bottom. 1 or 2 photos sort of in this bottom third area, and then embellishments on the diagonal from top left to bottom right. But I can flip it, so I could do it that way. I don't often do it that way, but I have, and I could do it that way too. So let's take a look at some of the layouts that I pulled aside that I feel fit this sort of L-shaped design. This one, it's really obvious. I've got this long vertical strip and my photos on the horizontal with an extra journaling card to really accentuate that horizontal. So that's really easy to see the L design there. This one as well, it's sort of more compact, but there's still this L-shaped design. This one is starting to sort of not veer away from the design, but take it in a different direction, mix it up a bit. So I've got a lot of this horizontal element with my die cuts and everything, and then the vertical, it's not paper this time, it's this more visual with all the die cuts coming down the left. This one again, less of the vertical, and my photo or my embellishments help bring the vertical up and across to make that L, but I would still put this as like a sort of L-shaped design. And all of these ones that we've looked at so far have basically had the photo down in this bottom corner here. This one we start to veer away a little bit. We've still got the L shape, but I've added an extra photo grouping up here. But it's still that same way of laying out my papers. Now I've shifted the L the other way. So I've still got the horizontal along the bottom, but now my vertical piece is on the right-hand side. And then I've added an embellishment over there. So my embellishment line is still kind of on this diagonal, but it is more in a triangle. This one takes the L in the other direction as well. So my photo is on the opposite side of the page. My embellishments are still coming across the bottom, and there's still this vertical line implied going from the embellishment, like all the flowers and everything at the bottom right up to the top right. Now we're back to more the more traditional orientation of the L, but it's broken up. I've used, you know, different cards. No, I don't have like a long horizontal piece and a long vertical piece. There, it's broken up into smaller pieces, but you still get that sort of L shape. And definitely you're getting this corner to corner from top left to bottom right embellishment. So this one, my whole L has been shifted over, and that's because the paper itself provides that vertical piece, the pattern in the background there, and I didn't want to hide all of that. So I have created my L a little bit further over to the right than I normally would. So my photo is more central. It's not totally in the center, but you still have that L design, and you still got embellishment going from the top left to the bottom right. And then this one, you might not think is in the same category. It's definitely got a stronger horizontal, and there's not quite so much of the vertical, but you still have these elements that help start your eye up here and bring it down and across. So you're still sort of looking in the L. So that's why I've included it in this particular design category. And this one is as well very similar to the one with my puppy. You've got definitely more of a horizontal grounding feel to this one. And there's not a single vertical piece, just like on this one, but there's still lots of embellishment that starts in the top left and comes down to the photo and then goes across. So you're still getting that L. Okay, so let's look at design number 2. So this next design is more of a 1/3, 2/3. So this one, I've got this strip of paper here, which is approximately 1/3 of the whole width of the 12 by 12, and it goes from top to bottom. And then I've got quite a bit of my embellishment on that 1/3 bit, and then my photos and everything across the bottom. You might think it's still that L, and it still kind of is, but these layouts definitely have more in this vertical column than the other examples did. Here we go again, 1/3, 2/3. Like, this is more half and half, to be honest. This time I've left a little border of the background paper. I don't always do that. Quite often I will run my 1/3 from top to bottom. And usually I'll have some of the background paper showing here on the left. And then sometimes that whole 1/3 strip is made up of multiple strips. So this one, there's a strip of paper, there's some washi tape, there's other little bits and pieces, there's some rub-ons. So there's a lot happening in that 1/3. Here's another one. So 1/3, and then we sort of pull it over a little bit. I've got less of a frame on this one. And here again, we've got that strip going all the way from the top to the bottom. It's narrower than a 1/3 strip, but it's still, everything is sort of focusing in this vertical column. This one, it's a little bit wider than 1/3, and I've shrunk it down a little bit, but you're still looking at that sort of 1/3 layout. My photo is straddling it. And this is where we start veering off a little bit, but I would still consider this a 1/3, 2/3, because I've got this big block of the vertical, and then I don't have a horizontal, like with my L shape, I definitely had horizontal elements along the bottom. This one I don't. I just have my photo block and then this vertical column. This one is probably straddling between the 1/3 and that L. This is obviously like an upside down L, but because there's so much happening in this sort of 1/3 column, I put it in this category. And then in a similar vein, there's definitely more happening along the sort of horizontal on this one, but because of the wider vertical bar, I've put this in the 1/3, 2/3. It is kind of, both of these are like a marriage between the 1/3 layouts and there's a design and the L-shaped design. But as you can see, they don't look the same. There's a lot of crossover. There's a lot of adaptations you can do to all of these designs. And yes, some of them fall into that gray area. But that's, you know what, that's all part of scrapbooking. Okay, third one. So this one is more, whereas the 1/3 design, I was focusing more on that horizontal, or sorry, that vertical section. This one I'm focusing more on the horizontal section, and quite often I will put like a frame of cardstock or pattern paper or whatever around the whole image. So let's take a look at these. So not all of these have a frame, but I will quite often frame this type of layout. So this one, pattern paper on top of cardstock. And then I've got this bigger block where everything is contained within this bigger block. This embellishment goes to the edge, but really nothing else goes to the edge. Everything is contained in that central bit. This one, no frame, but I only have this sort of horizontal block here. Everything is contained in that block. This one takes it bigger, but it's still the same concept of, you have this sort of big rectangle in the sort of bottom 2/3 of your layout, and that's where everything is. Another one, I have extended this one up a little bit, but it's still mostly this big focus on this rectangular box at the bottom. This one, we do have a little bit more of a sort of vertical pull, and then I've got another horizontal element at the very top, but still the main focus is this one piece of pattern paper where everything else is on top of it. This one I've sort of shrunk and stretched, if that makes any sense, and shifted it, but it's still the same, like everything is in this one box. So this one is starting to veer a little bit away more into like a half and half composition, and I don't do a ton of half and half, but I have every now and then. But even so, you can see that everything is still in this lower section. We've got this very defined rectangle where my photos are, and my title is attached to it. So it's still that smaller rectangle within the big 12 by 12. There's another example. I've got lots of this. This tends to be a favorite of mine. And sometimes I reverse it. Instead of it being at the bottom, it's at the top. This one I've added a little bit more sort of around it, but it's still, the bottom section is what my focus is. And this one, I've framed it again. I think this is one of my favorite designs because it's very easy. It lends really easily to adding a pocket. So this is a pocket, and I've got my daughter's graduation, whatever that's called, booklet thingamajigger. So I quite often will do this like with their dance layouts, soccer photos, that kind of thing, where I can tuck things behind. Here's another one. I've extended it a little bit above and below with the embellishments. We still have this big block where the main story is. And last one, same sort of idea. This one we've got it bordered, and we've got this block where everything is on top. So those are my 3 go-to designs. And let's just pull in my little post-it notes, my Scrap Happy post-it notes. So for me, I quite often will do things in an L shape, or I will separate the page into a 1/3, 2/3, or I will build a big block along the bottom and then embellish around it. So those are my go-to designs. I'd love to hear what yours are. Leave a comment here on the blog or on YouTube, and head over to ScrapHappy.org Instagram page and find out more. Thanks, guys.